Hello again, this is another video in the Master Polite English course from British English Coach. So in this lesson, we are going to look at ways to express annoyance or irritation in a polite way. So as always, we will have a look at a definition of annoyance and irritation. So the verb is to annoy or to irritate, and the nouns are annoyance or irritation. So we can say, I am, or I feel, or I get annoyed by something or somebody that makes us feel a little angry or not happy. For example, I get annoyed when people play music really loudly when I'm on public transport. Or people playing music on public transport really annoys me. So there are different ways to say it. So, as you can see from the image, there is a cigarette on the floor. And where I live, many people throw litter or rubbish, such as cigarettes, cans of Coca-Cola, chewing gum, bits of paper, etc., on the floor. And this really annoys me, because I can't stand litter bugs. So you've probably heard this phrase before, I can't stand. And we use it when we're really annoyed or frustrated by something that we dislike very much. A litter bug, or litter lout, is a British English expression, and it basically refers to somebody who throws litter or rubbish on the floor. I'm sure you know some people who do that. And this really gets on my nerves. Now, of course, there are lots of other ways we can express annoyance or irritation in English, but I'm going to just focus on the polite ways. So let's look at some phrases to express annoyance. Again, if you want to, just repeat after me. I must admit, I find people throwing litter on the floor a little irritating. I must admit, I find people throwing litter on the floor a little irritating. You see how I use the word little to make the frustration, the irritation, the annoyance a little softer, which is one of our features of politeness. If you don't want to sound so polite, don't use little. Another way to express annoyance is, I can't say I'm very happy with people who throw litter on the floor. I can't say I'm very impressed with people who throw litter on the floor. Okay, again, we're using the negative there. I can't say, with a positive expression, I'm very impressed, to make it seem maybe a little more indirect than explicitly polite. Or we could say, throwing litter on the floor is something that really gets on my nerves. Or if we want to make it a little bit more polite, throwing litter on the floor is something that gets on my nerves a little, I'm afraid. Okay, so this expression, I'm afraid, makes it a bit more polite, a bit more indirect, not quite as emotional. Some more expressions include, well, I'd be lying if I told you that I don't find people throwing litter on the floor really quite annoying. I'd be lying if I told you that I don't find people throwing litter on the floor really quite annoying. One thing that irritates me is when people throw litter on the floor. One thing that irritates me is when people throw litter on the floor. Again, if you want to soften it a little bit, one thing that irritates me a little is when people throw... You understand. Another way to express annoyance is, I understand that there aren't enough litter bins in the street, but that's really no excuse for throwing litter on the floor. I understand that there aren't enough litter bins in the street, but there really is no excuse for throwing litter on the floor. So in this one, you give kind of a justification, a reason for why people do the act. But in the second part, there really is no excuse. You show that this is something that really annoys you. So it's like, it's not really a justification or a good reason for people throwing litter on the floor. So now it's your turn. Let's practice with some situations. So how would you express annoyance in the following situations? You go to the bank, and I'm sure you know, but commission is an extra charge that the bank may ask you to pay when they perform a particular service. So you go to your bank, and your bank has increased their commission fees again. Maybe it's the second time this year. And you want to tell the bank teller, the person who works at the bank, how you feel. Second situation, a cancelled meeting. This is the third time in a week that this other company has cancelled a meeting without telling you. That's very frustrating, very annoying, isn't it? And finally, tapping a desk. The person sitting next to you in a quiet place such as a library is tapping the desk. You're trying to concentrate, but you can't. It's really irritating. So, using the expressions we looked at a minute ago, think or write or say what you would or might say in this situation. Spend a few minutes thinking about it, and then when you're ready, listen to the audio, and you can check with the script I provide. So again, before I give you the audio, you might want to do some shadow speaking, listen and repeat. So here are some ways to express annoyance about the three situations. The first situation, which was in the bank. Your bank has increased their commission fees again. You want to tell the bank teller how you feel, or the bank clerk. You could say, I can't say I'm very impressed with yet another increase. This is the second time this year. I can't say I'm very impressed with yet another increase. This is the second time this year. Or, well, I'd be lying if I told you this is not a problem. I'm seriously considering closing my account here. I'd be lying if I told you this is not a problem. I'm seriously considering closing my account here. So in this example, we actually use a threat. We warn them that something might happen if they don't change their policy. Next one, which is the cancelled meeting. This is the third time in a week that the company has cancelled a meeting without telling you. So you could say, well, I understand that things come up at the last moment, but there is really no excuse for not sending me a message to tell me the meeting was cancelled. I understand that things come up at the last moment, but there is really no excuse for not sending me a message to tell me the meeting was cancelled. We have a phrasal verb in there, to come up. So to come up, if something comes up, it happens without being expected. Another way to say the same thing could be, well, I can't say I'm very pleased with what's happened. I don't quite understand why the meeting wasn't cancelled earlier. I can't say I'm very pleased with what's happened. I don't understand why the meeting wasn't cancelled earlier. So instead of impressed, you could say pleased, or even happy, or even satisfied. And finally, tapping a desk. The person sitting next to you in a quiet place, such as a library, is tapping the desk and you can't concentrate. You could say, excuse me, but one thing that irritates me is when people tap their foot. Would you mind stopping, please? Excuse me, but one thing that irritates me is when people tap their foot. Would you mind stopping, please? Or, pardon me, but people tapping their feet really stops me from being able to concentrate. I'd be grateful if you could stop doing so, please. Pardon me, but people tapping their feet stops me from being able to concentrate. I'd be grateful if you could stop doing so, please. So again, we're asking someone to stop, but we're also saying we are grateful or thankful if they actually stop. So again, if you had any different suggestions, they're fine. Well, let's hope they're fine. And practice as much as you can. Try to memorize those phrases and just get used to actually coming across and using those particular phrases when you need to express annoyance or irritation. When you're ready, move on to the next lesson.